168th session of the Literary Club. As I'm sure you can guess by now, I'm not Ben. It's quite a distinct difference from the other. No, unfortunately, our esteemed president is what?
Information is not that different.
What?
I don't get
I'm not sure who you're insulting there, either me or Ben. Anyway, so yeah, I'm glad to have you all here. Our esteemed president is away at the dentist, that's why I couldn't be here tonight. So, and our secretary is away in France. And for any Hamilton fans out there, at least you can say he knows where France is.
I don't get it.
Anyway, so on with tonight. So has anyone got any announcements to start off with? No? Then we'll move on to private members' business. Has anyone got anything they'd like to bring up? Mr. Hugo?
Yeah. Well, so I would like to say that next Monday, Ms. Campbell and I are going to be travelling to Cork. They're having a debate on if the students' unions in Ireland should have an official position on the border. So, since we're only first years, we don't have that much inside knowledge like how students' unions work, is what they say. So, I'd like to know if anyone...
Facebook posts.
If anyone here has any thoughts on any points that we should raise when we're there, I would like to hear those because I don't have much to say.
I'm sure we can put you in touch with the people who did it at the last debate, don't worry. Chris?
So yeah, I actually do have a question. Are you going down as a team, or are you going down representing each side?
I have asked them in an email this morning and they have not got back to me on the actual date tonight.
No, they actually did say they're looking for speakers for the SU should be neutral.
Yeah, that was the side
We're
we're on.
probably both going to be in the same side.
I don't know if we're in a team as such, but that's the side we're on.
That's good. It's nice to see you representing the Literature down south. Any other private members' business? Miss Rachel Ireland?
Has everybody who's registered to vote voted today?
You've still got 2 hours? 3 hours left?
Just on 2 hours.
Anyone?
I voted before
Okay.
everybody points that out.
Mr. Kerry Campbell?
I'd like to pose a question to the House. Does anyone think this election will actually change the party makeup in Stormont significantly?
Would anyone like to respond to that? Mr. Calvin back?
Define significantly.
Anyone else?
No, seriously, Kara, what do you
Mr.
think?
Harrier?
Well, I think it will, but not in the way people think. I think what's going to happen most likely is that the DUP and Sinn Féin will retain their position as the majority parties in the House, and due to the constitutional arrangement of Northern Ireland, that means they will be obligated to make some sort of agreement to join the government or go back to a snap election. And I think the possibility of a third, fourth and fifth one is very low. Instead, we're going to return back into the rightful place of the British Empire, which would none of the parties will be.
Mr. Miller?
I think the one thing that people would hope for out of this election is DUP not hitting, I think, the 30 seat magic number, which I think is on the cards. I think they probably will actually get the most seats. I think Sinn Féin will probably get the second most. That's clearly understandable. But I think if they lose that magic number, that will represent the first change that has come in Storm politics for about a decade. So that's the one thing that I don't think it's significant, but in small baby steps, it's the first step along the pathway.
Mr. Dunn?
Wait and see. We don't know yet.
Okay, let's move on. One last private member's business. John?
So the rise of the right in Europe, Le Pen might be going to jail for a couple of years. She might be going to jail. She was brought into court a few days ago. So what's the thoughts on that? Will it just help their campaign, or?
It just shows how disgusting the EU is. Like literally, why can't she tweet about how disgusting ISIS are, right, and then not get immunity from it from that stupid organisation, the EU? The bomb.
I think it is a tremendous amount of opportunity to backfire. I don't think it was necessarily the EU which was suing her. I think it was due to the loss of France, but the EU then offered to rescind the parliamentaries, which is over there, it's a right, it's a privilege, not a right, unlike here. But I think the most likely situation of this will turn into this Joan of Arc character, because she'll be seen as like sacrificing herself to tell everyone the truth. So either it goes and blows over and maybe has some effect on our numbers, or will just enable something even bigger further down the line. So who can tell at this point, really?
Okay, moving on to President's questions. Ms. Keir Campbell.
Can I ask why you aren't wearing like the presidential robe?
Because it's in banging with Ben, so this was the best I could do. Ms. McLean?
I would like to know how to vote for yourself and Rachel. What dates to vote on, what times.
I have to remain neutral on this, but I'm sure Rachel will enlighten you on the voting procedures.
No.
No, I have to.
Fantastic! So voting takes place on Queen's Online on the...
Tell them what you're running for.
Oh, I'm running for education. That's...
What's Lily voting for?
I'm running for education, and I think someone who might do something in leisure, I think her name's Lily Zester, possibly, is running for student activities. So you can vote for both of us and not feel guilty. It is done on Queen's Online on the 7th and 8th of March. Voting opens at 7 a.m. I don't expect you and me to vote that early on the 7th, and closes at 5 p.m. on the 8th of March. And then results released as close to 8 p.m. as possible on the 8th of March. Yeah. And it'll be in handy little pop as soon as you log into Queen's Online, as we all do every day.
Okay.
I know my was to say it's on 100.
If there's no other President's questions, yes.
What did you have for breakfast today?
I had a hearty, almost lunch of something that was reduced from Tesco's about a week ago.
Something?
It was a bit nondescript, to be perfectly honest with you. There was bread, there was meat, who knows. Yeah.
With the recent revelation that Subway's like chicken meat is actually like 30% soy, are you confident that what you ate was actually meat?
I mean, I really don't care, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyway, okay, so on with tonight's debate. This House believes, the minutes, I forgot there was one thing. I've got Mr. Peter Beck, our secretary for tonight, to read out the minutes from last week.
So I was getting away without doing that. Good evening all. The 16th ordinary meeting of the 168th session of the Literary and Scientific Society was held on the 23rd of February 2017 and saw 46 members brave storm doors to discuss seizing the means of education. The week's private members' business eschewed the stereotype of debaters being sport-averse nerds, as both items were about professional sport. Our secretary, Mr. Whitehurst, kicked off proceedings. Kicked off? No, okay. By asking for our thoughts on Piegate, where Sutton United's reserve goalkeeper ate a pie on screen during a football match. Dr. Craig Miller confessed to being a pie fan and extolled her virtues. Tech officer Chris Spratt spoke against the exploitation of the working class by gambling companies. And Mr. Whitehurst spoke passionately about events such as this, making a mockery of the joys of football. More business was raised by Mr. Conor Ardle about the bias against Ulster players in selection for the Ireland rugby team, in particular Paddy Jackson over Johnny Sexton. Mr. Spratt praised the longevity of Sexton on the pitch, but conceded that Paddy Jackson is indeed a great young lad. President Murphy confessed to having no idea what anyone was on about. The President's questions saw the Society continue to descend into unbridled anarchy as Mr. John McLean asked what the tech officer had for lunch. The reply was indigo French toast with bacon along with Rwandan coffee, confirming that Mr. Spratt is indeed a member of the Liberal elite. Ms. Keir Campbell asked what the appropriate time for breakfast was, however the answer varied depending on whether this was your first, second or third breakfast. The motion for the evening was then announced as this House would oppose the marketisation of higher education. Opening for the proposition was the President of Queen's Student Union, Mr. Sean Ferrin. He claimed that there is an overwhelming agreement among many groups that marketisation of higher education brings an existential threat to academic freedoms and workers' rights. He defined marketisation as the belief that universities and their purpose should be governed by the whims of the market, with students as customers and courses as products. He said that public revenue can drive innovation just as well as private revenue can, and those in charge of the shift towards marketisation are a small group obsessed with prestige and private income. Mr. John McLean opened for the capitalists of the opposition by claiming that a higher percentage of students in the UK go to university than in Europe, so our universities should be run and funded differently. and that our marketised system is fair. He stated that we can have a large or small amount of marketisation and that the repayment system makes fees fair. Then showed that he knew the mind of his audience by saying that the cost of repayments is a mere £2 per month. Mr McLean concluded by blaming both the bloody government and Tony Blair. The second speaker for the opposition was Miss Beth McSorley, who immediately triggered several existential crises by asking us all why we came to university. Maybe that was just me. Before telling us that the bastions of university are free thought, developing yourself and the expansion of thought. She then asserted that industry experts have interests other than academic freedom and want to mould students into thinking in one specific way, and that marketisation leads to priorities other than academic standards and leads to the loss of critical feedback when students' work. Mr Conor Ardle spoke next for the opposition and opened with the claim that tuition fees and the current system are not examples of marketisation, as they are government-backed programmes, and that government interference is a real problem. He also said that the arts would survive as people still go to the ballet and read books, so there will be demand. He conceded that the proposition were correct about university management. However, he said that more marketisation gives students a greater say, as they can take their money elsewhere. Finally, he set out his vision for a marketised system with no loans, different universities charging different fees, and more competition for students. Closing for the proposition was Ms Surinder Kaur in her maiden speech to society. She began by explaining the effects of marketisation, principally that fees would rise year on year to the point where many could not afford to attend university due to the debt, leading to a less educated society overall. She also claimed that marketisation would increase the dropout rate and noted that competition should be based on a student's intellect and potential rather than the size of their wallet. She countered a point raised by Mr Ardle by saying that the removal of a fee cap would lead to most institutions simply raising their prices. Closing for the opposition and therefore the debate was Miss Rachel Ireland, who began by stating that industry links benefit students before decrying the opposition for offering one-sided points on industry links. She then told us that we are all consumers. Ms Ireland continued by saying that the marketisation encourages some universities to offer cheaper fees before attempting to flatter the house by saying that we are all free thinkers, if she says so. She encouraged us not to act like spoiled millennials who feel like they are entitled to a free education, before concluding by saying that marketisation is a necessary evil and that we are all consumers, which is not a bad thing. Insightful questions were raised by Christine Clement, Con O'Neill, Matthew Sullivan, Chief Reduction and Craig Miller. A vote based on House opinion prior to the debate was taken, which read 22 ayes, 10 nays with 10 abstentions. Meanwhile, a casting vote based on Speaker's performance was taken, which read 4 ayes, 21 nays and 4 abstentions, so the motion failed. May I take the minutes as read?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Beck. First up to speak for the proposition is Mr Matthew Sullivan.
Okay, so I'm going to start by defining the motion, and that is basically our side is you can't keep animals, you can't kill animals, you can't eat animals, and doing so is wrong, and I'm going to explain why that is. Throughout history, mankind has committed countless atrocities, whether it be genocide or slavery or any other restriction of basic rights. And all of these have one thing in common. It is a sad fact that we as a species have the ability to delude ourselves into believing that the person who stands opposite us is not a person. They don't matter the same way that we do, but some inherent quality makes them different to such a degree that we can enforce our will upon them in whatever way we see fit. However, in time we came to realise that removing somebody's status as a person isn't morally justifiable. You can't just pretend they're not a person and then do whatever you want to. We do this for basically all the atrocities we committed, except for the worst one. Because when you get down to it, when you examine things as logically as possible, when you throw away all these emotional biases, you come to a very simple conclusion. There is no inherent quality in humans that separates us from other animals to such a degree that we can truly say that it is worse to kill a human than it would be to do so to an animal. And first I'm going to go through a few of the more obvious reasons, not right now, as to why somebody might think this is the case, and I'm going to show you why they're wrong, yes?
Go for it.
Could the Honourable Gentleman define what he means by a person in this instance?
I'm going to get to that, but it's going to take a while. So, as I said, I'm going to go through a few of the reasons why someone might think they're not people. Let's take intelligence. So, an intelligent dog is more intelligent than a 2-year-old human. A not so intelligent dog is more intelligent than a 1-year-old human. This has been confirmed by studies by Professor Stanley Corr at the University of British Columbia. And they outperform dogs both in the ability to recognize words and to perform simple mathematics. Pigs, yes. Pigs also perform similarly to dogs.
A 1-year-old or a 2-year-old human has the potential to possess far greater intelligence than any dog can possess in its entire lifetime.
You're right, it does, but the fact remains that in that state, they are not as intelligent. You know, they might be someday, but right now, they're not. And because, not right now, because you can't just take a baby and kill and eat it on the basis of it not having as much intelligence, you can't really do the same to a dog or a pig either. You can't justify that because they're not different in that sense. So clearly, it's all intelligence that separates us, not right now. So moving on from intelligence, maybe it's sentience, you know, or consciousness. The fact that we're self-aware and think about ourselves will know. Because animals can do that too, as stated in the Cambridge Declaration of Consciousness, which goes, evidence indicates that non-human animals have the neuroanatomical, neurochemical, and neurophysiological substrates of conscious states. That is to say, all mammals, pretty much all birds and some fish, have all of the things you need to have consciousness, and science is pretty sure they are in fact conscious. So it's not consciousness. Is it sapience? You're able to use tools, mold their environment? Well, no, because birds can do that too, and so can some fish. What about our ability to form social connections, make friendships, bonds? No, that's not unique to humans either. Cows, sheep, and horses do that, and elephants mourn their dead. So, that's all of my reasons. I'm going to ask if anybody has a reason why humans are different from animals. Go ahead.
We're on Team Humans. If you kill a human, you betray Team Human.
Not a logical argument. You.
Surely the argument for the fact that humans are in fact different from animals is the existence of some kind of moral compass. As you said yourself, you know, earlier in the debate, animals will not differentiate between a human, but we will.
That is actually a decent point, but I do get to that. That's all the ones I want to take. See, while animals don't really have the same morals as us, that's still no reason to kill and eat them. After all, we don't kill and eat murderers, do we? No, we just lock them up. So given all this, given there's no real logical reason that allows you to separate animals from humans in such a way, there's no real logical reason to justify the belief that they're so different. Why is it that we can justify killing and eating them and enslaving them? Yes, I know, you put your hand up first. Yes.
I was going to say, by that logic, we can lock up animals. If we can lock up a murderer who doesn't have the moral compass that you can't answer based on what Rachel said, we can then lock up animals too. By such they are a commodity.
Well, yeah, sure, you can lock up animals, but that doesn't make them a commodity, because murderers aren't commodities. You can't just say that a person's a commodity. You can't buy and sell people. We've moved well past that in Western democracies. See, animals have... Yes?
Have we truly moved past buying and selling people? I mean, if we're going to follow on from Ryan's question, what are you describing as a commodity? Is it
You
just
can't take a person and go, hey, I'm going to sell you this person for £10. Okay, here you go, do whatever you want. I need to move on quickly. See, animals have emotions, they have feelings, they have a level of happiness, and therefore killing them causes as much harm as killing a human. Enslaving an animal causes as much harm as enslaving a human. And the worst part is, we don't need to do any of these things. We don't need to enslave animals, we don't need to eat them. Every major dietetics organization now says that a vegan diet is enough to sustain you completely. You don't need to eat animals. No, thank you, this is my last minute. Animals aren't commodities. Because when you look past all these emotional biases, when you discard all your non-logical things, when you're looking through the lens of logic and reason, enslaving them is equally as immoral as it is to slave a human. I urge you now to look past all of your emotions. consider this argument only with your reason and your logic, and with the newfound realization of the greatest atrocity mankind has ever committed, to support this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. I now invite Mr. Bradley up
Yes.
to speak for the opposition.
Yeah, that's my name. Animals. They're fascinating, majestic. It's on a screen. What was that noise? Seriously? I mean, it tastes pretty good too.
It was your rare meat mooing. It was that rare.
It was me booing.
Okay, but are they a commodity? Well, yes, they are. I bought that burger, which I've now unfortunately thrown it in my bag. I've got it weighed in the chippy down the road. I've got a receipt and everything in my pocket, but I can't find it. But can we say definitively that in today's society that animals are a commodity? Now, before Dr. Miller brings some proper science and facts and things to the table, I would like to examine the status of animals as commodities in today's society. But first, some rebuttal, Mr. Sullivan. We were talking about the year-old human compared to the intelligence of other animals. I think that the key there is something that the rightful Mr. Dobbin brought up, and that is the idea of potential.
On that point,
I will take your point.
would a terminally ill 2-year-old then be allowed to be able to mistreat them if they're going to die in a year?
Well, no, because you're hoping that they will survive for as long as possible.
100%.
It's one of 100%. You'd hope, well, if it's your child, you'd hope to care for it, if I'm honest. And we can't just kill them because one day they do have potential and there is an attachment already there. This idea of potential goes even further. When was the last time you saw a cow being awarded by his fellow cows for being outstanding in his field? I worked on that hunt for 2 days. Humans have great potential that is untapped, and there's something that animals do not have. They have a life cycle. Are you okay? I will accept.
Okay, you're going to make this argument about the human potential. What about the people who can't reach that potential because they're either mentally or physically ill and disabled?
This idea of potential isn't exactly like meeting aspirations. It is the idea that you can do something with your life, not just. It's not even things like getting a good job or having friends, whatever. It's the interactions between people that make a person different to animals. And we have built. Okay. And also the animals being the greatest atrocity as well is something I would also dispute, considering what we've done to animals in most of the cases isn't out of a place of malice. You think of the Holocaust, Hiroshima, I defer. These kind of a place of malice, whereas with animals it is out of necessity or because they'll be able to do a job for us. And we've built our society on the commodification of animals. Hunting has been part of human existence, and the existence of all animals since the beginning of time. And I accept.
Okay, just because something is necessary doesn't mean it is morally right or that we should do it.
I was really going from the start of time, and I was going to bring that up to now, but you sort of interrupted before I got to that bit, so I will continue. Whether through trapping animals, fishing, or using hides to make homes, the commodification of animals has been part of our existence since society began. Before money, animals would be bartered for goods and services, and with the new shiny £5 note containing traces of animal fat, this hasn't really changed.
On that point, no one.
Fine, I'll accept then. Okay.
No one fishes and hunts for their food anymore. People buy it in the shop. Like you can't say that it's a necessary thing. No one still goes out and fishes and hunts for their food.
How's it get to the shops?
Yeah, but you're not going to do that for your food.
Some people, for one, some people do, and for two, some people have to do that so it gets to the shop.
I think what you're saying.
No bargaining.
Please, I'm just. Yeah. So, I'm going to talk about something that's possibly the most literal example of animals being commodities, and that is pets. How many people have a dog in here? Just out of interest. Any people that have cats? obscure pets of any kind. You know, you're purchasing an animal to have in your house. You're forcing an animal to be in. It's treated as. Oh, it's still talking. Okay. It's treated as a literal possession, no different to a bit of furniture, or it's just treated as part of the household.
On that point,
I accept.
I mean, there are places in the world where, should I wish it, I could buy a human and have them work for me, and I would own them. Does that mean humans are therefore commodities because, somewhere in the world I can buy them?
A commodity is defined as something that can be bought and sold. So if humans can be bought somewhere, then they become a commodity in that place. Where was I? Not only do pets provide vital companionship to families, and especially the lonely or elderly, they're also provided with a greater quality of life than they may have had in the wild, especially considering we are damaging forests, etc., and we are destroying their habitats. Furthermore, if we move away from the canine world, pets such as bearded dragons, frogs, and various other reptiles require to be fed with live crickets or mealworms, which must also be farmed and purchased, so there is a cycle that continues. The pet industry is massive, and its economic benefit, as well as its benefits it brings to pet owners across the world, cannot be understated. Another thing that brings... I accept.
So it's fine that we can, enslave animals because there's an economic benefit. There's also quite an economic benefit to enslaving humans. Is that alright too?
That's not true though.
It's hand down.
Well, I suppose you could say that to all things, but this idea of codependence, you're sort of trying to put forward the idea that humans and animals can live in harmony, either with each other or away from each other. The commodification of animals is allowing this, and it is preventing a lot of harm. Another thing that springs to mind is guide dogs, before I was interrupted there. Guide Dogs UK actively breeds dogs to be used as guides for partially sighted and blind people, and this is where the idea of coexistence comes into play. So we will see in the animal kingdom that the oxpecker bird cleans the back of hippopotami in return for food and protection, yet we can't have this with people. Guide dogs are needed to help you. Oh, you're having a giggle, that's not good. But not only do they require significant training, their incentive to help is a warm home and the care that comes with being an animal as a commodity. So before I wrap up, like it or not, humans run this planet. We've taken over most of the land. We have pretty much enslaved animals. Animals are a commodity. They are bought and sold every day. Just because you don't want that to happen, that doesn't mean it's not the case. I implore you to defeat this motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bradley. Next up for the proposition is Mr. Jamie Cardinal.
Members of the House, as the great Margaret Thatcher once said, while the conventional political dangers, the threat of global annihilation, the fact of regional war appear to be receding, we have all recently become aware of another insidious danger. It is the prospect of irretrievable damage to the atmosphere, to the oceans, and to Earth itself. What we are now doing to the world by degrading the land surfaces, by polluting the waters, and by adding greenhouse gases to the air at an unprecedented rate, all this is new in the experience of the Earth. It is mankind and his activities that are changing the environment of our planet in damaging and dangerous ways. What a moment. Since 2016, the World Economic Forum have classed climate change and environmental issues as the biggest threat to the global economy. From 1970 until 2020, there are going to be a reduction in vertebrate populations in the wild by 67%. 1/3 of them are going to be left by that point. We're seeing sea levels rise at accelerating rates. This past decade have doubled the rate of the past century. Carbon dioxide levels in the air surpassed 400 parts per million in 2013, a level which has never gone above 300 any point in the past 500,000 years, and this has led to a 30% increase in surface ocean acidity. We're seeing the global temperature rise every single year. 2016 was the hottest year on record, 2015 was the hottest year on record, 2014 was the hottest year on record. I could go on with more statistics like this, but it should be clear to everyone who doesn't have a vested interest in the coal industry that climate change is the biggest issue our generation faces.
Yes, it may be, but how's that related to the motion?
The commodification of animals is the largest contributor to climate change. Animal agriculture is responsible for roughly 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. Animal agriculture has been... Yes?
Does that change the definition that animals are a commodity?
No, we are not arguing, of course, that animals are not a commodity in this society. That is a ridiculous idea.
That's the motion that you
This obviously is true, and you couldn't have a debate arguing that. We are arguing that animals should not be a commodity in our society.
Here.
Animal agriculture is responsible for 91% of deforestation in the Amazon, and as such it is the #1 cause of species extinction in the world. It is also uses 1/3 of fresh water, and 45% of all land on Earth is covered with animal agriculture, either growing the crops or the animals. Yes?
But animal quantification could be done differently than that. So you haven't really shown that in essence it's immoral in itself, more that certain...
How it actually is.
Yeah. How it is now, but not necessarily has to be.
Well, the reason why it takes up so much room and so many resources is because, I mean, if you think back to your GCSE biology class, you'll remember learning about trophic levels. This means that every level of the food chain you go up, you lose a huge amount of energy. You have to feed a huge number of plants to an animal to eat that animal. When we look at the oceans as well, we've seen a huge reduction in the fish population over the past several decades. Part of this is because of the acidification of the ocean, but a large part of it is because 85% of the world's fisheries are currently overfished.
Yes, that's not true. The reason why we've actually got a massive issue with fish population right now is actually because of shark fishing. It's basically by killing the top predator in any food chain, you destroy the ecosystem underneath it. That's been proven.
This is also...
and that's the main reason why there's a fishing issue. Yes, we do overfish, but the main single reason is we're destroying the ecosystem, which isn't allowing new fish to stop to grow.
Which is also a result of the commodification of animals. The average person in the UK cutting animal products out of their diet will reduce their personal carbon footprint by 50%. It will reduce the amount of water and oil that they use to produce their food by 90%, and will reduce the amount of land they take up by 94%.
On that?
Yes?
Well, I mean, this isn't a beginning, just a simple change in the relationship between animals and domesticated animals. Humans and domesticated animals. For example, we might rely more on fish farming instead of trawling to have a more sustainable model and a reduction in consumption of red meat rather than complete abolition. I don't think that's at all.
We're seeing a huge increase right now in the number of fish farms and so on, and we're still, the number of overexploited fisheries is just going up. This doesn't seem to be solving the problem. And also the red meat consumption would need to go drastically down. You have to consider that we in the first world eat far more meat than anyone else in the world by a huge stretch. And as these countries get more and more money, they are wanting to eat more and more meat to be more like us as they become more affluent. So we're going to have to account for that as well. If you want to reduce your meat to what would be sustainable, it would be a minuscule amount. It wouldn't even be worth it. But aside from climate change, there are many other ways in which the commodification of animals harms humans. In the United States, 7% of antibiotics that are suitable for humans are given to animals. And this is a problem that's even greater in the likes of China. In the United States alone, 23,000 people die every year as a result of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. The vast majority as well of starving children, about 82% of them around the world, live in countries that export food to affluent countries like our own that we then feed to our animals so that we can eat meat. We grow enough plants around the world to raise and kill 60 billion land animals every year, while 1 billion people don't have access to enough food. To conclude, the commodification of animals results in the maltreatment and death of 60 billion land animals and a further 90 billion marine animals every year. It results in a vast amount of environmental destruction and a variety of other problems that face humans, particularly those in less affluent countries. I would urge you to vote with the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cargill. Next up to speak for the opposition is Dr. Miller.
Got some scraps of Okay. I think there's some confusion on the actual title of the motion, so I'm happy to clarify for everybody again. The actual motion is about this, is relating to, are animals a commodity or not? Not should they be a commodity or not. I'm very happy to change the definition as final speaker if everybody is happy with me to answer that question, and we'll take that as the new motion. That's what you've basically been talking about. Right, and I'm happy, as fourth speaker tonight, to go down that view if the House are happy with that. Which I know is completely against convention here, but that's what you've been answering. So if it's over to the President, are you happy for us to start the clock again and go with that definition?
Might I clarify on this?
Yes.
It is a fact that animals are a commodity in this society. When we were proposing this motion at the meeting, we were told the wording would be changed at some point, but I guess it wasn't.
So I'm saying I'm happy to go with the new definition, even as final speaker, if the House are happy to go down that and the President is happy for that as well.
We can take a vote on it. Mr. Spratt, would you like to make a point?
I would like to say that it's first proposition's right to define motion as they will.
He defined it differently.
He didn't. You should have paid attention because he didn't.
Okay, fine. So there's no need to actually change the definition. So we're going with the non-definition of the motion.
I'll start the clock again.
Which I'm fine with. Okay.
Go ahead.
So story time. When training for surgery, what do you train on? The first thing you go down to is usually a pig that's been intubated. So a tube in a pig's throat and you go and cut something out of the pig. Let's just say we get rid of that as a form of training for surgeons. Do you want me practicing on your child? No. On you? On your dead grandma? Like, dead grandma might be okay, child definitely not, you probably not as well. The bottom line is, if we go down a route where we shouldn't have animals as a commodity, you will be damaging your health directly because surgeons can't practice. That's the most brutal way of looking at it. Secondly, you've heard quite a bit of fake news from the proposition. And the bottom line is that the only source of vitamin B12 comes, from animal product. You can take vitamin B12 supplements, they don't work. You can get vitamin B12 injections, which are from animals. So the bottom line is that if you don't, it's true they are, right? If you don't get vitamin B12 injections as a vegan, you will end up with macrocytic anemia, you will probably end up with heart failure, and there's a good chance of you ending up dying down the line. It's true. It's the only issue with a vegan diet is vitamin B12. There's no issue with protein. That is a fallacy. There's no issue with iron. That again is a fallacy. There's only an issue with vitamin B12. Okay, and you can only get it from animal product. Number 2 reasons why they should be a commodity. The third reason, and actually my favourite reason, if we go back to Rhodesia, just to wind this up, if we go back to Rhodesia, they set a rule that basically any animals that were on somebody's private land would be the landowners. Kenya went down a different route. That any animals that were on land were the governments. If you now go to Zimbabwe or you go to Kenya,
where has got a higher population of rhinos and elephants? It's Zimbabwe. It's because they made animals a commodity. They said to landowners, you can farm rhinos and you can farm elephants. It was then in the landowners' interests to keep their elephant and rhino stocks high. They wanted the elephants and rhinos, but they also wanted to earn some money from selling ivory. It's the ivory that you can buy across the EU. And it's one of the reasons why the EU did not ban ivory sales. It's because of the fact that it's kept the elephant and the rhino populations across that country at a decent number. When you don't commoditise, that's now a new word, animals, you end up with the Kenyan situation where you don't have any rhinos and elephants. Go on.
Is that the only way we could possibly protect the rhino and elephant population?
It's a great question. Now, I'm not going to go myself and start shooting an elephant or shooting a rhino, primarily because I would want to eat it and I wouldn't want to eat an elephant or a rhino. But if you look at the reasons why, across Africa predominantly, as a continent, that effectively getting our elephant and rhino populations mutilated, it's because people aren't taking ownership, and governments do that very badly. Okay, the reality is there has to be some financial incentive to do something, especially with this situation. There might be some lovely people that really want to hunt the rhino, but they still need to go and eat. Okay, they might go and eat the plants that they've grown on the fields that the elephant sits on, but the bottom line is there's not something where you can keep a sustainable elephant and rhino population by doing that. So unless you are commoditising these animals, and it's why we should have them as a commodity, you will lose more and more animal stock. And I mean actual animals that we want to see, not like cows in fields, okay? That's a different argument completely.
On that point?
No. So that's where they should be, a commodity. I'm now going to come back to first crops, sort of main points. Now, this is to do more with the philosophy of why humans are not animals and animals are not humans. And I bring you back to probably my favourite animal story. I don't know if anyone noticed, but oysters are perfectly capable, depending on what's in that current sea, of changing from male to female and female to male. It's the only animal that's able to do that. We can't do that. We can't biologically, as a man, start giving birth to children and vice versa. Biologically, we can't do that. Equally, seahorses, we probably all know this fact, the males give birth. And spiders, after the females have given birth, they eat the male. Which I think plenty of women would probably want to do that, they can get away with that in this population, but it's not what's going to happen. So, we are different. Let's go to the rawest form of what I'm trying to get at. If you take a starving mother and a starving baby in the most famine-stricken places in the world, that starving mother will still not eat her starving dead baby. It won't happen. It hasn't happened in society, it didn't happen in the Holocaust, okay, and that there is the fundamental rebuttal to first prop. We differ from them. Now, the real question which he was trying to get at is why, not do we? And that comes down to our moral compass. We have the ability to self-reflect. Animals don't. We can go, I did that really well, or I did that really badly, and therefore next time I'm going to do that differently. And yes, animals can pick up a rock and learn if they hit it that way, something happens.
On that point?
No. But the bottom line is, there is a spiritual part of a human that is different from an animal. And that's the real difference of why we differ from them. Okay, we have a moral compass, they do not. They should be commoditised for the reasons I've outlined, and there are plenty more. I've only got 7 minutes. I've taken my 3 favourite reasons why they should be a commodity. I urge you to vote against the motion tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Now we're going to move on to questions. So, firstly, I'd like to take questions for the proposition. Ms. Campbell?
I would just like to know what this proposition think a world where animals are not a commodity would look like.
Well, just a society where we don't buy and sell animals for food or for clothing or for whatever purpose.
What would replace animals?
Well, there's replacements for everything. What specific? Can we have a slight?
No.
There are alternatives for everything, and you can get food, clothing, everything. I don't know what. I'm not sure what the question is.
Would you like to respond?
Yes, please. Yes, there are these sorts of commodification that we've been talking about, but there are other types that I didn't get onto in my speaking. I will now get onto now. I'm presuming you're quite big into conservation. A lot of conservation is based on the idea that we're essentially making these animals a product that we can pay into. And for example, aquariums, they will do conservation work, and that conservation work is done because of the money that we give them via the commodification of these animals. So to say that just completely removing that commodification would not solve the problem completely. Habitats are going to be destroyed anyway because humans are greedy. That's just the long and short of it.
Thank you very much. Now, we'll take a question for the opposition. Mr. Dobbin?
I'd like to address the point about how the fact that commodification of animals is in fact very discriminatory, and how you approach the fact that there are some animals that we have legislation to protect. We view them as beautiful, serene creatures, etc., etc. But other ones we stack in cages as they have to watch and smell their friends' family die and then be slaughtered themselves, and how unfair that is.
What's your response?
So, I'm not going to stand up here and say that everything we do to animals right now is the fair, nice, cosy, loving thing that we should be doing, or that we can do. But if you take, for example, crocodile farming in Zimbabwe, I don't know if anyone's seen that going on right now, but they basically, the way they crocodile farm is an alive crocodile, they get a sword and they shove it down the spinal cord of the crocodile, and that's the way you kill a crocodile for your handbags. So we don't do anything nicely right now. That doesn't mean that animals shouldn't be a commodity. That means that we should be putting in more protections for animals so that we give them the one thing that in my head we should be giving them, which is dignity in their life and death. Okay, that's the difference. We should give an animal dignity in its life and then dignity in its death. We should be doing that, and we should be working to get to that point. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be commoditising animals.
Would you like to respond?
Well, on this specific point, in general, the better you treat an animal, the worse it is for the environment. The longer you keep an animal alive, the more space you give it. These are all things that make them consume more and more resources. We're already at a point where we have to drastically reduce the amount of animals we keep. And treating them better would mean this is an even more impossible task.
We'll go back for another question for the proposition.
Isn't it usually like neutral?
I was going to do neutral at the end. Okay, fine. Do we have any questions on the motion? Ms. Rachel?
Is using animals in advertising, so even something as nice as dog's trust, a form of commodification?
Would you like to respond first?
Do you want to go on? Yeah, mine's going to be a one-word answer.
Okay, go for one word.
Yeah, like it is.
My answer would be no. When we see humans in adverts, we don't consider those humans to be slaves or commodities. So the same would be true. The same would be true as well for animals.
Okay. Any questions proposing? For the proposition even, sorry. Mr. Deck?
It's really hard to ask a follow-up question to what you asked. The influence of animals in society, particularly in countries without industrial capacity, is certainly something that's a lot more complex than I think you're giving credit to. For example, the relationship between the medical industry and animals, which if we were to cut out that relationship completely, that would cause serious detrimental impact on the quality of life of humans. And I don't think that's something that I was prepared to accept.
In third world countries, they use far fewer animals than we do here in the West. But specifically with regard to the problems it would cause for humans, it would certainly cause problems if we all went, if we stopped it overnight. But that's not what we're arguing. That's just not a feasible thing. We're saying that this practically could happen over a number of years, and we could work out all of these problems. There are trusts. There's a huge amount of effort going into in particularly in the field of computer science, in building applications that simulate, say, the human body, with what we were talking about. That you get these big, you get a VR headset, and you can tend to operate on the human body and so on. But we're coming up with ways to get around this technology all the time.
Would you like to respond?
Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to try and get on 2 or 3 points as briefly as I can. There is absolutely no way of replicating surgical training unless you use a human being. There's no way of doing it. Every human being differs. At least on an animal, you've got blood vessels going in, nerves wrapping around stuff. You've got organs that need to be chopped in and out. There's no way of doing it. So you will be affecting surgical training, you will be increasing mortality and morbidity in a country if you don't commoditize animals. That's not debatable. Diet, which is the second point which I think has been skirted around, not really touched upon. Drastic changes are needed in the way that we make food. Okay, they're currently happening in labs right now. We've made our first steak for £11. It was 600 quid a year ago, but we've made a steak in a lab for 11 quid. Okay, that's coming down. Once that happens, the main issue that you've got in terms of needing to make lots of plants into an animal is true, it's valid, that isn't fake news, okay? That happens. But the bottom line is that once we can make a piece of steak in a lab, we don't really have the issues that you're talking about with plants into animals. So it becomes a much more ethical, philosophical debate that we've got, which is where I thought this debate was going to go rather than into the nuances of dietary requirements. Finally, with regards to agriculture, within time, and I can give it 5 to 10 years, agriculture is going to be drastically different. Okay, based on labs. Okay, we won't be having big fat fields with cows in them. There just won't be a need. It's too expensive. If you can grow something in a lab for 50p for a steak and sell it for 4 quid, you're going to do it, right? So the bottom line is, from that side of things, needing animals, yeah, like agricultural countries, that's what their main source of revenue is going to go bankrupt. I don't care because I get my meat for cheaper.
Okay. Now questions for the opposition. Anyone? No? Yeah, go on ahead. Would you stand for the statement, please, on the list?
Hi, Anastasia, New York. Yeah, you kind of put forward this point that, you know, we should treat animals as commodities because they don't have the same moral aspects as humans. You know, you give examples of like spiders eating meat and stuff. What about like human incidents of cannibalism and murder interspecies?
Would you like to respond?
Yes, there are human incidents of that. You know, you can't deny that. But it's not something we generally do. You know, it's not hardwired to the human life cycle. It's not like, oh, you're born, you have children, then you eat the child bearer or the I'm not good with words, even though I'm a student. No, just because, you know, we are fundamentally different to animals, and it is this idea that, you know, one, we're biologically different, that's obvious, but then there's a moral aspect as well, and we have moral codes. Like, there's an argument about whether it's nature or nurture, whether we do have a moral code, but it's definitely more advanced than that of what an animal would have.
So, just because animals have different moral compasses to us, just because, you know, they basically don't have them, doesn't mean you can just cause harm to them. You're still taking a thing with a happiness level and reducing its happiness and well-being, which is still immoral, no matter what it does or has done. It doesn't actually change anything.
Has anyone got any last points on the motion? This will be our last one.
Well, Campbell had a question for both sides, but it might be a bit of a contentious question, and I was a bit hesitant to say it, but just on Craig's point about a moral compass, is he saying that it goes into where you get your moral compass from? But is he saying that the only difference between human and animals is a religious reason, because you get your morals from a higher power.
Mrs. Miller, would you like to respond?
I'm not the one who stood up here and said that to be moral you've got to be religious. You can't believe it. That's a joke. Okay. No, I don't think that we get our moral compass from religion. I think that it is partly, I think it's predominantly a genetic element with a degree of environmental input. That's the reality of the situation. You can go back thousands of years and we still end up in this situation. Yeah, we might fight another set of people over there to protect our land or because we want their resources. But we don't then go there and start, to use my eating babies scenario, which is about the second time I've mentioned that in 4 years, but still. No, I don't think we need to be religious to have a moral compass, and I don't think that's the reason, and I don't think our religion is what differentiates us from animals. I think the bottom line is that First Prop was trying to get across that we are the same as animals, and I've put forward something to suggest that one of the reasons why we are different from them. That's all. It was in rebuttal to how he mentioned 3 or 4 points in relation to using tools, in relation to intelligence, in relation to forming social groups. They were his reasons why, and I was just basically forming rebuttal to his 3 points of why we do differ from them.
Okay, thank you very much. Shall we move to a vote now? So the first vote will be on prior opinion, so what you thought before you came in here. And then we'll do another vote on speakerability. So, yeah, do you want to get your membership? The first one is for, not for members, it's for everyone, and in a
Can my
minute.
mum vote?
Is she a member?
No.
Well, she can vote in the first one. Sorry. Yeah, you can. If you're not a member, you can vote in the first one. If you are a member, you can vote in both of them. So, I've completely forgotten what the motion was. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so should we have a vote on prior opinion? So those who were in favour of animals not being a commodity when they first came in, would you like to raise your hands now? That's 2, 3. Okay. And those who weren't, who opposed? Sorry, I'm new to this. 15. And those who are abstaining?
Nah.
Yeah, you can say no if you want. 6. And now this next one will be on speakerability. So, if you thought the proposition spoke best tonight, please raise your membership card, or if we know you're a member, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
4. And if you thought the opposition spoke best tonight, please raise your membership card and say nay.
Nay.
12. Anyone who's abstaining? No. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Jason, how do you go?
5.
Yes.
5. Unless you want to be counted in abstaining, Jason. Do you want to be counted in as abstaining? So that means that on speakerability, the opposition have won tonight. Thank you very much. We're all going to head to the house bar now. Better late than never. And I hope to see you there. What else am I going to say?